All right, so I wanted to show real quick if you had a logo piece that you might want to animate for your reel, what that process might look like. So I've got the Buffalo State logo right here, and I've broke it up into several different layers. You can see the layers are, and you can break it up into more layers if you want, but you'll just have to animate them in more detail. So as I go through here, I've got the main crest here. I've got the text as individual layers in Illustrator. And that Illustrator file is saved in a folder. So if I jump over to After Effects and just import that file, it's right there. Just import. And it says, do you want to import it as a composition? That's fine. I'll import it as a composition. And then I'll just drop it into this view. If you don't import it into a composition, you can, as a composition, you can change it to a composition later. And the reason why you might want to do that, and before I go any further, I'm just going to tap rasterize right there. The reason why you might want to bring it in as a composition is so that way when you double click it, you'll have all the individual layers that you can still edit and animate. And so I can see which layers all of these are. So I'm going to rename those layers so I know what they are. So I'm just right clicking and choose rename. I'll call this bottom text. And then this one is, if I turn it on and off, you'll see what it is. This is the main crest. Oh, I double clicked it. Rename. Rename. Crest. This is the top text. Rename. Top text. This is the white disk. This is the stars. And this is the black circle that's around it. All right. So once those are all separated, what I'm going to do is set individual keyframes. I want this animation to take about 3 seconds. So I'm going to zoom in. So that's about 3 seconds right there. Yeah, I zoomed in too far. There we go. Sounds like it's about to start raining. And so I'm going to step into all the layers, and the only thing I'm going to animate is their scale, and I think for a couple of them I might animate their opacity. So I'm going to set a keyframe for scale, and while I'm at it, I'm going to set that keyframe, right-click, keyframe assistant, ease in, so that way whatever I set it to do later, it will ease into that. And thank you. And for the crest, I should have turned off all my notifications before I did this. And for the crest, let's have that do something else. I want that to actually fade in. So I'm going to set a keyframe for its opacity right there. And then I will have it fade in over the course of about 1 second, maybe a little bit faster than that. So here, I set a keyframe for rotation, not opacity. So let's delete that keyframe for rotation, set for opacity. Then come over here and turn the opacity down all the way. So that way it fades up. And then for scale, I think I'll set a keyframe for it to be way out here. So if I just come out here like that, so that way it's going to scale way out. And then come in like this and slow down. So then on this level, the crest will fade in. The top text will do roughly the same thing. And normally you'd want all that to be in sync with each other. So maybe I'll have the bottom text open so I can see where that layer actually is. And I'll set another keyframe for the bottom, or for the top text scale. And again, right click and choose keyframe assistant, ease in. Come out here, roughly to where that other logo is, and I'll just scale that way up. And then let's come over to white disk here. And again, we will have that one. We could have that one grow. That might look kind of cool if it grows. So come in to where the different animations start to end. We'll have that grow finish before everything else finishes. And so I'll set the scale here. And again, right click, keyframe assistant, ease in. And come out here, and let's set the scale to 0. So that way it comes up out of nowhere. So comes in. There we are. Let's go down to the next layer, the stars. Let's have the stars come in as well. Transform. So let's set in keyframe for scale, right click, keyframe assistant, ease in, and let's have this animation be one of the longest here. So set the scale for the stars way out here. So we see everything starting to move in. And if they move at different speeds, that might make it more interesting. So I'll just move that keyframe around. And then the black circle, we want that one to fade in as well. So go down to transform, and we'll have it fade in probably first. Opacity, and we don't need to set, I normally don't set keyframe assistance for animating the opacity, but you can if you want. So that scales out. Now, this we're all doing inside of the other composition. So if I step over to the other composition, the original one where that's still just a nested composition, we'll see everything coming out here. And we'll see that it doesn't start all together, but it looks all right. I don't like how the Buffalo State logo kind of looks like a eyeball as it comes together, but that's right. I think what I'm going to have it all do is start to fade in about right there. But also you'll see that it's aliased around the side. So there's a couple things we can do to fix that. Well, there's a couple of things we have to do to fix that. If I go over to crest, where the layers are all individualized, what we want to do is make sure we turn on rasterize for all those layers. So I'm just going to hit the little asterisk-like thing here, the rasterize. And then back here, we'll want to have rasterize turned on for that layer as well. I have a gray background so we can see the animation as it's taking place. I might replace that with a white fill, but we'll see what happens. And now you can see that the text is nice and clean because it's all simply vector imagery. And let's go ahead and turn on motion blur while we're at it, because that's always fun. Turn that on for all the layers. So as that comes in, it's all going to be nice and motion blurred. And then what I'd also like it to do is as it's fading in, as it's moving in, I'd like it to fade in starting about right there. So I'll just set another opacity for this view right here. So opacity, and then about, probably should start about over here, should end fading in about right there. So let's set that another opacity keyframe, and then go back to the first keyframe and set that opacity all the way down. So that way, as the animation starts, it all starts to fade in. And let's see here. Oh, that keyframe's at 0. Let's set that to 100. So it fades in. There we go. That's good. And then lastly, I think to make everything just slightly more interesting, I'll scale the composition itself as it fades in. So starting in about right here, let's set a keyframe so that way the whole thing moves forward as it moves backwards, or maybe we can have it move backwards from us. So I'll set a keyframe here and right click, keyframe assistant, ease in, then drag the playhead out, and then let's just scale it up a little bit more. So that way all the animation is happening much faster. And so then that way everything's compiled on top of each other. So instead of using cameras and things like that, we see the animation come in this way. Let's run a real quick preview. I made the composition 30 seconds for whatever reason, I'm not sure why. And so let's do a real quick preview on that. Just hitting play. And so if we don't have to use 3D or anything like that, that really speeds up our animation. Don't like the way the crest is coming in too soon. You can see it at the beginning of it like that. I think probably need to change that animation a little bit. So let's come back over to the crest here and look at the crest. I think probably what's going on is the opacity on the first keyframe is not at 0. That's very much the case. Let's make sure that's on 0. Then come back to the main composition and preview that again. So a real simple build from just a few layers. And what I would do if I had more time to work on this, I would spread apart the bottom and top text, and I might animate those separately so that way their kerning and so forth is animated more. But I think that's a good start. So just taking some basic flat 2D art and animating it very quickly so that when you build your reel, these graphics look a little bit more interesting. So not only are you extolling your graphic design skills, but you're also coupling that with motion graphics skills, which is always very useful. So good luck. Thank you for watching.